Dr. John Ryan is a medical doctor from Canada, and he has just written an amazing book, and he is not only going to be speaking today, he's offering individual healing sessions. And so thank you, John, for that incredible work that you do. And John has his wonderful partner, Michael, with him as well, and they are just two of the brightest souls on the planet. So we thank you all for being here.
So we're going to take a little bit of a journey through an understanding of healing, and then we can approach unity field healing from that threshold, if you will. So we're going to start by asking, who are you? And after the last meditation that we all encountered, I think we realized we're much, much, much more than the physical bodies sitting here in these chairs today. We take on identities, we take on roles, we consider ourselves to be members of certain nations, or maybe we're children or adults or aging. And this transforms. We identify ourselves spiritually with communities and with the jobs we do and the hobbies we have or the roles we play as mums and dads, and maybe we're healers or we're light bearers on the planet. We're all these things. We have these identities and we consider them to be who we are. But we're also told that life is energy. And it's hard to sometimes bridge these two concepts. How can we be human beings and energy beings and spiritual beings and all these things at the same time? What's the sense in all this? How do we make sense of these things? And how do we bring meaning to them in our lives in an everyday way? Well, everything is composed of energy, at least everything we see in this visible dimension. Matter it's based on atoms. We have energy particles that are protons and neutrons and electrons that are spinning in orbits, and they all join together and they form molecules of different kinds of elements that you see in the periodic table, and there are relationships in physics that define how all these molecules can interact, and we get them all together souped up into the human body, and then it's under control of how we think and how we feel. And all these energies are interacting, and they're really who we are. But we also started to understand that there are interdimensional forces. There's more than these physical relationships between atoms and molecules. There are forces that exist inside the atom that we call quantum, or quantum relationships. And then we start to realize that consciousness controls matter because of intent and the way that we relate in consciousness to the material world. This will define how matter will behave. So yes, we're energy, and we're also consciousness at the same time. So if we come back to the question, who are you really? Are you just an energetic being? No. You're actually a spiritual being of consciousness. That is your truest nature. And you come to the planet to live as a human being, and to do this, you take on energy bodies, okay? So the energy bodies are of different types. The first one is actually the most obvious one, and that's the physical body. We don't normally think of the physical body as energy, but we have to start to do that, because everything that is physical is composed of energy. And by bridging that small link, you realize that things that seem so structural and so real and so immutable are actually transmutable. If something is not as solid as we first thought it was, it can be changed. And this is a key to healing, to understand that, the reality of that you can actually transform matter by consciousness and by understanding. So we have our physical body, we have our etheric body, and the etheric body is an organizing field of energy. Now, I know in this group that most of you are aware of these things, but quickly we'll go through these just so that we're all on the same foundation. The etheric body is an organizing field of energy. It exists inside the physical body. There are people who can actually see this thing. It's not intangible to some people who can see energy. And it has meridians and lines of energy that flow through it, and people who work with acupuncture and different types of energy healing therapies are actually working directly with this energy field. But we also, as a human being, have thoughts and feelings. And to have these experiences, we have other bodies. We have an emotional body. We have a mental body. And we use these energies the same way that we would use any kind of energy. It's in the domain of where it exists. So your feelings are feeling like energy. Your thoughts are structural energy. Thoughts, feelings, the etheric, they all interface with each other. And the whole energy system interfaces with the nervous system and our spiritual dimension of consciousness. So it's a bridge we have to make to really begin to understand healing in a profound way, okay? And these are just some pictures to show some of these things: the etheric body, the emotional, the mental. We can see the chakras aligned down the axis of the human body, and then the radiant energy, or the aura, that emanates from the presence of all this energy. Now, to really begin to understand the physical world, we have to take a step back and understand the energetic, or the sub-physical world. And the easiest way to grasp this is to think about a bar magnet. So if you have a magnet in your hand, it looks like a piece of metal. And if you lay it on the table, you don't see lines of energy, you don't see forces of any kind behaving around that magnet. But if you put a sheet of paper over the magnet and you drop iron filings, all of a sudden this beautiful structure appears that shows you the lines of electromagnetic force that exist all the time around that bar magnet. And it's this kind of inner energetic order that exists in our physical body as well. So the etheric body is very much akin to this magnetic field. It exists inside the physical body, and it holds the physical body together. Energy runs through it, and it channels energy to all the cells to keep them alive and vital in our body, okay? And the meridians are the lines of force that run through the etheric system. We have a chakra system, and chakra is a Sanskrit word meaning wheel of light. But it's important to understand that chakras are not physical entities. They're really consciousness and energy domains, or transducers. They're really an energetic or a consciousness domain. And they can receive and transduce and transmit energy. And they're portals for the reception of energy. So we can receive energy from higher dimensions of being. The energies in the various levels of our energy bodies can interchange. Emotions can affect thought. Thought can affect emotion. Emotion and thought can work together and make you do something physical. You can have the inspiration to go buy an ice cream cone, and before you know it, you're up off the chair and off to the market to have your ice cream cone. So these energy can flow between patterns through the chakra system. And then, of course, we connect to the energy of the earth. And it's very, very important not to forget that. Because with the energy of spiritual acceleration, the grounding influence is so important. And it's really been a theme throughout the day that we need to ground this energy in the planet. And it's important that we stay connected in a profound and logical and very present kind of a way, okay? Our human life is a reflection of the internal order of energy in our own personal energy bodies. So it reflects the quality and the order of energy in our etheric, our emotional, and our mental systems. We attract experiences to us that are vibrationally resonant with our own energy structure. And it's so important to grasp that. People say we're creators, we're conscious creators. But we're not just conscious creators because we have a thought. We're conscious creators because we have a presence, okay? So it's one thing to say, I want to be happy. But to be happy, you have to bring that happiness entirely into your system, and you have to manifest it. Otherwise, what is it? It's a thought, okay? So you have to be able to bring all of these good intentions and all of this goodwill into your energy system and manifest it, bring it to life. Bring peace to life, bring kindness to life, bring joy to life, bring all of these things as manifest experiences that come through you, okay? So for better or worse, we are manifesting experiences, and the things we live mirror our energy to us. And then you realize how important your experiences are really for you. Whether it seems positive or whether it's negative in terms of our own judgment of the experience, it's precious. It's precious because it's reflecting. And how do you see what you need to transform if you can't see it? Okay? And I think Peggy gave a beautiful illustration of that today. She was transforming something in her physical body, in her energy structure. It was not easy to live what she lived. That was horrific. It's a difficult, difficult experience, but it's still a precious experience. And when you start to understand that, you don't see life as good or bad, you see it in an isness kind of a way. That's the way it is. So let me figure out what this is all about, and I'm going to use it to transform anything I need to transform or heal. And you begin to appreciate the experiences, and you begin to appreciate all the things that you encounter and live. And then you start seeing life through the proper eyes or with correct vision. And that is your spiritual vision. That's how a spirit would see things that are happening in your life. Importantly, we can also understand that we're connected to a higher consciousness reality. So when you think you don't know the answers, or when you think you don't know how to fix something, you actually do. So the truth is, you always just have to reach up a little bit higher, go into another place of understanding, a little bit deeper or higher, or however you want to conceptualize that in a quantum way, and pull the solution, pull the answer, pull the energy into your experience so that you can bring in a transformation if that's the process that you're going through in a healing context. And this is how we manifest healing, and it's how we really manifest healing from the inside out, okay? We can take medicines, we can do all these things to transform structural realities, and they're all good, and they're all noble, and they're all God-given, and they're all fine. They really are, even if people judge them. They're all pieces of knowledge that have been given to provide comfort and understanding and peace or healing or longevity to somebody, even if they look horrible to someone who sees themselves in a spiritual framework. But when you start to understand the capacity you have energetically to go inside and bring new healing forward, then you are capable of doing other kinds of healing. Maybe not just taking medications to treat a disease, but to actually correct it from the inside out. And everything has its place. Judge nothing. Judge nothing at all. The unity principle is that consciousness has sovereignty over matter. But in order for consciousness to have sovereignty over matter, you have to recognize your consciousness. You have to realize your spiritual nature. And it's then you can bring that consciousness into your human experience to begin transformation. We meet the concept here of our higher self. And people see this in all kinds of different ways. Higher self, my 12 strands of DNA, my higher consciousness being, they're all fine terms. The important thing to realize is you're more than a human being. You are a spiritual being, and however you want to conceptualize that and bring that into your life, that's fine. We can heal the past, we can heal psychological issues, we can heal genetic tendencies towards certain predispositions for diseases. It's all possible to do. The possibilities of healing are really as unlimited as our conscious power and love. And this really understands or defines the essence of anything we call healing or light work. So what are some of the things that affect us energetically? We're influenced by both the form and the flow of energy. So the structural energy and the way energy moves through the system. If I have kinkages and blockages that are stricturing my system for any reason, they're going to affect my health and vitality. If things flow through me and they get blocked, then the energy can't flow properly into that aspect of my life, so there'll be blockages that manifest. These help create a vibrational signature. And that signature is your attraction. That signature is the energy present that says, this is what I am, this is who I am, this is who I am, this is who I am. Show me who I am, show me who I am. And then life shows up and it brings us those experiences, and then we get to see them. And then we say, well, I don't like this, so I'm going to remodel that, and I don't like this, so I'm going to fix that. And that's how we approach healing, okay? So it's all very good. Things like nutrition, normal aging, all of these things have an influence on our health. The excessive, repressive, or distorting use of any one of these energy bodies can affect our health. If I'm overly dramatic all the time and I'm running around creating drama everywhere I go, that's going to affect my health and probably yours. If I don't express, if I have anger and hostility and I don't find a way to express or heal or cleanse that, then it's going to affect my energy and my passive aggressivity towards you, and then probably yours. So you start to see how these dynamics can be set up. Transpersonal things are also coded in our energy. And these are things like karma and life lessons and the genetics we carry from our own family lineage. And this information is carried in what we'll explore in a few minutes as our spiritual DNA. So this DNA interfaces with our energy system. And now that we can begin to start to understand that, we can look at our spiritual DNA as a mechanism, if you will, for healing. And of course, the ego, the famous ego. The ego is probably the most misunderstood word in the entire English language, I think, in any language. But ego is sometimes misunderstood for a sense of personal power. And to have a presence and to be a meaningful existence on the planet is not to have an ego. The ego in you is the fear that is imposed on all of the different elements that come from past experiences and the nature of life on the human plane and all these things that evoke fears and abnormal ways of relating to each other. So in order to understand the ego, you have to understand the concept of fear, or love versus fear, and what is love doing and what is fear doing. But to be a fully manifest presence of love on the planet looks magnificent. But it doesn't mean the person is full of ego. They may be a radiant light. Do you see the difference between the two? So to have a strong presence that's balanced and harmonious and spiritually aligned is not to have a strong ego. Ego is something different, and we all have to learn about it and do our own process of integrating it, because everybody has things that they have to deal with. Every one of us does, right? So healing becomes restoring the energetic alignment in our energy system. And then we're able to outpicture a greater expression of health and balance and spiritual integrity. And it can involve healing of any of the bodies we've talked about, any of the psycho-emotional elements that we've talked about, and it always implies a growth in consciousness. In order to heal, you always grow in consciousness. It's a given, okay? Energetic healing is healing that's founded on a greater understanding of the energy form and the causal influences in the energy that lead to problems that manifest as form or experience. And we can work energetically in a couple of ways. We can do direct energy healing work, or we could do consciousness growth. Now, by direct energy healing work, I mean things like Reiki, or hands-on healing, or unity field healing, or EMF balancing technique. These are all modalities that work vibrationally. Crystal healing, all of these things that work with energy and vibration are things that work directly with the energy system in the body. And then consciousness is working with the spiritual element of life and to bring healing in through consciousness and understanding. Humanity is evolving at the present time, and I'm talking to a group of evolving humanitarians, so I don't really need to tell any of you that probably, but we are. And if we're evolving, then something is happening in us. Something is happening in our DNA, because the DNA is really the foundational code, if you will. It's the molecule that gives rise to any person on the planet and to pretty much any form of life on the planet. So if there's a transformation taking place, you can rest assured it's going to involve the DNA, and it is, okay? As people experience this upshift, people who are born or incarnate today are born at a time where you really have to take a step of intention. You say, I'm born, I really want to move into this new planetary existence, and I intend to transform or to grow. People have to do that and awaken to their own inner divine nature. Otherwise, it's very, very hard to achieve doing that. The kids born today are a little bit more wired up, but they're not void of the same responsibilities that we have. They have all the same path before them. They have to learn and do their own growing in different ways. But it's a little bit more difficult for us who are adults than children being born, because we weren't born with that same genetics. We weren't born with that same energetic overlay. We have to transform or live the transformation of taking that on while we're in a physical body. And that's not fun. So this goes by a bunch of terms. We're familiar with all of them, I'm sure. I just list them here, and any of them are fine for us to use. Our DNA is really quantum in nature. And we can understand DNA to be composed of multiple layers of energy. But you have to understand that the layers are not layers like a cake. It's more like the ingredients in a soup, okay? So in a cake, you have your cake and your icing, and then another layer of cake, and you can see all these layers very distinctly. But in a soup, you throw in your salt, and you throw in your seasoning, and you put in your water, and you look at it, and it looks like a big porridge of some kind. And then you can't really pick one ingredient out from another, but they're still all present. The salt is still there, the water is still there. And the quantum layers of DNA are like that. They don't exist as layered reality. They exist as ingredients or elements, if you will. And our spiritual DNA interfaces with our molecular DNA. And it does it in a quantum way. And the easiest analogy we have as human beings for that is just to think of Wi-Fi. You walk into a room where there's a Wi-Fi adapter, and if you sit with your computer, you can pick up the messages that are coming through that Wi-Fi system. And our DNA, our molecular DNA, is picking up these signals and this energy that's coming from the quantum, or the internal organization, the energy layer, if you will, of our DNA. And we can develop a conscious relationship with the DNA, and we can learn to communicate with it. We can talk to it and ask it for what we need or what we want. We can ask it for healing. We really can. And we can give conscious instructions for our bodies to adapt to the DNA. And the DNA will listen. It's just waiting for your call. It's really ready for us now. It's there. These 12 layers are outlined in a beautiful book by Lee Carroll. And I just mention it here in case any of you have not been exposed to it or understand it, or heard of it, pardon me. He's broken the 12 layers up into 4 groups, and I've listed them here. But I'd encourage you to get a copy of this book and take a read through it, because the information in it is really timely and really, really helpful for understanding. Catalytic energy healing is healing with support of vibrational tools and consciousness. And as a foundation, it really helps us to understand a few simple things. And I couldn't have had a better segue into this part of my talk than everything that happened today, because sacred geometry, resonance, cymatics, consciousness, we've covered it all through the course of the day. Sacred geometry is the study of geometry, of the geometrical order that exists within life. So it's like this energy pattern that exists behind structural form. We're familiar with the sacred geometrical structures, like a circle, sphere, the platonic solids, the toroids, the spirals, Fibonacci sequence, Metatron's cube, lots of flowers of life. I see them floating around the room everywhere. And it shows up in all of manifest relation in creation. It shows up in plants, minerals, crystalline structures. We can see that this geometry is the building order. It's the order that life uses to create life. And that's really why it's sacred in the first place. They're found in proportions in the human body, the relationship of one part of your finger to the next, or your hand to your wrist, or your forearm to your upper arm. All of these things are in 5 proportions. And so you just see these patterns all over life. They're everywhere. And why is that valuable? Well, it helps us understand the inner order. This is important because this geometry is what is inside manifest reality. It's the energy, just like inside the magnet there's the invisible lines of force. These geometries are inside physical structure. And therefore they can be used or applied to knowledge that can help us do things that seem magical or mystical until we cross this bridge of understanding. If you look at this and you watch the evolution of the flower of life on the left, and on the right you see the division of the human zygote, from a fusion of a sperm and an egg, and the development of a zygote, you can actually see the whole pattern right through the seed of life and the flower of life, just reproducing itself. You see the magic of it and why it's so important. Cymatics is the study of visible sound and vibration. When sound is produced on a medium, it creates a standing wave pattern. And this leads to a visible pattern of order. And on the right here in the black, we see a little series of 9 images that show standing wave patterns that were created. This is work of Dr. Hans Jenny many years ago, by passing sound through one of these cymatic templates, and the sand is ordering itself in the pattern of the sound. It's taking on the vibrational order or cohesiveness of the sound. This has been understood and utilized in healing for thousands of years. The whole science of mantra in Eastern traditions is based on using sound vibrationally to heal. We can use sound to deconstruct. We can use sound to reconstruct. If you've ever gone to a Tibetan concert, the first 15 minutes are god-awful. It's like, and there's all these sounds coming out, and you think, this isn't healing, what's going on? It's a destructuring energy. And then the energy moves into a more crystalline order, and it's a restructuring energy. But you can see how these principles are applied over and over in healing modalities. And it's important to realize that thought functions very much like sound. When you think, you are creating geometries just the same way these sound waves do when they pass through matter. And this is how thought becomes creative. We're actually creating forms that then manifest in some way. Okay. To understand resonance, you just need to understand the model of a tuning fork. If you strike a tuning fork that's set at a certain frequency and it begins to vibrate, And in the room, there's a second tuning fork that's tuned to the same frequency. Magically, it starts to ring. And if you stop the vibration in the first tuning fork, the second tuning fork continues to ring. And this is resonance effect, and this is how energy affects energy. So a simple principle, but important in healing. And then consciousness, last but not least. So Tib mentioned earlier the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto, and this, in his work, what he did was he showed the crystalline order that appears in water that's been subject to different influences. And these influences might be consciousness, like thoughts and words or prayers. It could be pollution or something very structural or, that exists on the planet. And we see these pictures here that show what happens. So for example, we have here water in the Fujiwara Dam before a prayer ceremony and after. And you can see the crystalline order that develops in the water under the influence of the prayer. It's really, really beautiful. This is water exposed to John Lennon's song Imagine. This is water exposed to heavy metal music. And when you look at that, you think, I really don't want that. But the truth is, sometimes we need that. Sometimes we do actually need to destructure things because they're crystallized in us and we don't want to let them go, but they still got to go. So sometimes you need the influence of something that's not necessarily pretty or harmonic. But then you can reconstruct it. And that's the important part to understand. This is water subject to love and gratitude. This is water subject to a crystalline influence of emerald. And here pine, one of the natural essences, and wisdom and truth. So you can just see how all the things we consider spiritual attributes and the things that we use in natural and vibrational healing have this beautiful, coherent influence on water. And what are you? You're water. 80% of our bodies is water. Now we jump off the platform of sanity and we go into the quantum world a little bit. What are light templates? So light templates are interdimensional energy patterns that are based on specific geometries. They originate from an inner or higher dimensional level of vibrational organization. They're not something we're ever going to see with our physical eyes on the third dimension. But they're energy patterns of an order that exist within the quantum layers of life. Okay? They can easily be understood, though, by looking at the sound patterns we talked about in cymatics, that invisible energy that's ordering the form in a certain way, or the intelligence and order we see in sacred geometry, and even in crop circles that pop up on the planet. These are beautiful, very complex geometrical structures, but what's making them? There's some kind of vibration that's hitting the ground and creating that, isn't it? It has to be something doing it. We can use them with consciousness and in healing to vibrationally support healing process. And the unity field template is just one of these patterns. It's a light pattern, and there's a picture of it there in the right corner. The template can produce a catalytic resonance support for energy transformation. So just by sounding a tuning fork, we can sound the light template, and the resonant influence of the template can have a healing effect on the energy system of the body. In this case, it's the quantum DNA. It's catalytic in the sense that the template is there. You don't take on the template. It doesn't form or become part of your body. It's a resonance. And a catalyst has the influence of creating a transformation without really being implicated in the transformation. So if something catalyzes a chemical equation, for example, the chemistry is the same, but the catalyst kind of makes it go faster, if you will. So it adds a resonance support. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but I don't want to go down that road. Why is it important, though? Because you're supporting or facilitating a change by working with these templates that are inherent to the person you are or the person you're working with. So in other words, by working with a template, somebody is not making you become something. It's a resonance, and it's reminding you to become who you are. Okay, or if you're working with someone else, it's teaching them to become who they are. And that's really important because we're not here to be the same. We're here to be ourselves. And everybody is unique. And one thing can't be all things, so you have to find a way to help people become who they're meant to be. And that's really integral in healing. So this process, the unity field healing, is a new healing process that was conceived in 2012. It's quantum-based, and it works at the level of our spiritual DNA. And it's intended to facilitate biophysical, emotional, and mental healing through recalibration of the spiritual DNA system. It's as simple and as complicated as that. The work it's first performed by bridging or strengthening the alignment we each have with our own spiritual DNA axis. And then secondly, a facilitation by recalibrating or using the light template that we term the Unity Field template to resonantly influence energetic transformation. And it can be done by hands-on sessions. It can be done in a meditative guided process. And the work was gifted to me through a series of visionary experiences that I lived, and I'll share a little bit about that so you understand. So many of you know Max. Who knows Max? Okay. Who loves Max? I had a meditative experience with Max the Crystal Skull back in November of 2011. And it's one of these things that you're just not the same after you live it. It's a transformative moment. And what happened during the meditation was I started to have a vision. And I have visions sometimes. I've been shown things energetically and transdimensionally and all that kind of stuff. But I don't walk around in that space seeing interdimensional things all the time. It takes a certain resonance or a certain space for it to happen. Either I'm in a deeply meditative space or I'm in a really highly crystalline field. And that's really what I believe happened with Max. I was in a space where I was triggered to have this awakening or this memory, if you will. And this vision kind of started with it was like a cosmic blue sky. And it was like you were looking at, if you know Maat in Egyptian mythology, the cosmic sky. It's blue sky full of stars. So it was this big, big, big cosmic sky. And a point of light came down through the sky, and it opened into a pyramid. And it was a translucent shell of light. So I could see through the pyramid, but it was obviously a pyramidal form. I'd lived things in the past where I'd seen a pyramid come down, and then something came through it, and it revealed itself to me, and whatever. But in this case, the pyramids just kept coming. And 3 of them unfolded before I finally got to the next part of the vision. Then a point of light came down through the 3rd pyramid, and it opened up into a sphere. Okay? And then within that sphere, 2 smaller spheres, it expanded and 2 smaller spheres formed. And then it expanded again and 2 smaller spheres formed inside the smaller spheres. And it stopped there. And it just sat there for I don't know what amount of time, minutes or seconds. And then all of a sudden, it activated. And it was like light was flushing from inside this structure out. So the light was coming interdimensionally. It was flooding through the pattern, and it made the pattern begin to spin. And what ended up happening is as the light was passing through these circles, it was an illusion, like when you see a tire on the wheel of a car. It starts to spin, but you get to a point in speed where it actually starts to look like it's spinning backwards. Okay, if you're all familiar with that? So as this light was spinning forward and backward, it was creating a yin and a yang. And I could see that form directly in the light field. So this all happened, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, but I really didn't know why I saw this or what it was about. So I just left it at that. I recorded the experience and let it be. I went to Egypt with the group and came back. And then one day after a meditation session, I was laying down, and I hadn't thought about the template in quite a while, but the template came back into my 3rd eye vision. But this time it activated. And all of a sudden, all of this beautiful crystalline light started to flood through the pattern. And I could see fibers and bands of light and all kinds of things dancing around. But it never came into my body. I never really felt like it came into my physical body. I could just see it in this other dimension wherever it was existing. But as it was active, it began to stimulate my body. And I could feel tugging, and I could feel little things pop, and I could feel jerks and motions, and I'm laying there like a marionette as this little pattern is dancing away in my 3rd eye. And then I thought, oh, this is some kind of a healing pattern. This is something I'm supposed to use in healing. So I thought, okay, I guess I'll learn how. I'm not quite sure. A couple of weeks later, I was surfing on the internet, and you can imagine the astonishment when I saw this. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is really quite cosmic, what's going down here. So I thought, that's fun. Through the summer, I had received a little bit of information about the template. But at the 12-12-12, I came back to the event in Arkansas, and I had another meditation with Max the Skull. And this vision opened up. The first thing I saw was the cosmic spiral. And it was like I could see through my pineal gland this floating galaxy. And then it spun, and this cosmic braid of light came down to the planet, just like you see in the middle image. And then the strand turned on the side of itself, and I looked down the strand, and as a scientist, I thought, oh my gosh, that's DNA in cross-section. And I realized that the galactic spiral and the strand of DNA are really the same. The DNA structure is universal. It's the way galaxies are made. It's the way life is made. It's the way our cells are all related to each other. And then the whole thing disappeared. And then the next thing popped up was a crystalline staircase. And I was a little surprised to see this because I wasn't quite sure. I thought I was being called back to heaven or something. And then it went up to another dimension. It was like this, again, translucent golden light. And it refreshed like a computer screen. And when it came back, it had DNA laying on the stairs, just like you see in this image. And the DNA was the mirror of another crop circle that a lot of people are familiar with, this double helix of DNA. And when you have visions like this, there's an element of them that are symbolic, and there's an element that is perhaps trying to show you something that you're meant to understand in a 3D form. And I thought, well, I know I'm not supposed to walk up these stairs and leave the planet, and I don't know what DNA is doing here, except I was familiar with the concept of ascension and DNA and all this type of stuff. And I thought, oh, this is really just a spiritual validation that DNA is the path to ascension. It really is the way that we ascend, okay? And just, I needed that. So Spirit gives us what we need. You need a vision, you'll get your little vision. You need an experience, you'll get an experience. If it's appropriate, and if it's meaningful, and you're meant to use this in some spiritually significant way. So I don't take this lightly, and I don't speak about having these kind of visions without some remorse, because I'm not the type of person who would ever want to say anything that's self-promoting or vain. But when you have these kind of visions and you're meant to bring them to life in a meaningful way, you have to find a way to do it. And I don't know how else to do it but to tell you. So that's exactly what happened, and that's why I share them with you. The last element of this vision was the DNA strand opened up, and the little unity field healing template pattern was immersed inside this molecule of DNA. And if you've ever seen that commercial where the scrubbing bubbles go into the toilet and they start scrubbing around, that's really what this thing was doing. It was like moving around and doing a little cleaning job. And I realized, okay, I can't have a better message than this. This is meant to go in and clean up the DNA. It's really meant to help go in and help people transform. So I just put together this whole series of experiences that I lived, and I realized what this is all about and what I'm supposed to do with it. So that's how it unfolded for me. And that's what led to unity field healing. And then there's just crop circles everywhere. They seem to be all over the place showing the same thing. So the sessions for unity field healing, there are 3. There's session 1, which is a self-attunement. It's an attunement with your own spiritual DNA. Session 2 is a unity field template attunement, if you will. It's working with the template inside your own DNA structure to stimulate healing. And then session 3 is a targeted intentional support. So it's if you're going through processes and you want specific help around an issue, or you're having a difficulty moving through something and you really want to target some energy on it, then session 3 is really geared for that type of work. But the first 2 sessions are the primary sessions for people to experience. And originally I was doing it only as hands-on healing work, and then I was led to do it in a guided meditation. So I created a recorded meditation just to make it accessible for people and also easy to use. You can use it at the convenience of your home. You don't have to come to see someone as an energy healer. You can actually do it in your own space and time. And it also makes it very affordable. So instead of having hands-on sessions to have some of this stimulating work, you can do it for just $40 for 2 sessions. So it's pretty economical, I think. And on the website, you can also access online purchasing for them as well. And then this all led to the production of a book, and I just authored a book called The Missing Pill. And this book it's really an energetic primer. It's a primer that discusses everything you kind of need to know to understand energy medicine and healing, and then take you up to the threshold of unity field healing, which is introduced in the last chapter or 2 of the book. So the book is really meant for anybody on their own healing journey, or also for people who work as healers with other people. And the reason that I really started to write this book was I found in working energetically with people, I didn't have a book I could say, well, go read this and you'll just understand so much more. and then we can talk a little more on a level playing field, if you will. And so I wanted to put together information. Some of it's from my own experience, some of it are things that are part of the whole collective community of consciousness, but it's really all about healing, and it's the foundational stuff you need to know to really understand what energy and consciousness healing is all about. Okay? And that's available too. We have a few copies here, and we have it on special for $20, so now's the time to buy it. And there's a meditation on the website that you can all access to. So if you go to my website, and this is just to drive you through a vortex here before I let you go. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed that.